Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your sun in Aquarius and your moon in Pisces. I just spent 17 minutes spinning out into some kind of, I don't know, tangent. So I'm doing this over again because I actually know a couple of people with this combination. And in observing both of them, I have felt that there were irrational aspects. But obviously, that's me looking from the outside and onto somebody else. And maybe you will agree with me, maybe you won't. But in any case, I'm going to talk about this. So, the sun is your aspirational self. If you have the sun in Aquarius, you have a scientific mind. Whether you actually go into that as a profession is anybody's guess. You are very talented intellectually. Aquarians can be very egalitarian, where they believe that everyone is equal, but the one area of arrogance that you might kind of like show some of those qualities is with your intellect. You may present yourself as a know-it-all. And I don't know, I read so much, but I was just reading that. Oh, no, it was actually a comment that somebody made to me, which I laughed and I agreed with. They said that the Aquarian will get offended if you disagree with them or, you have your own ideas. And I totally go along with this because and this is going to be the imbalanced one, not every single Aquarian. That video was for Aquarians who are narcissists and how do they convey their narcissism. So that's on my channel if you're interested in the different signs of narcissism. But the reason that this occurs is because Aquarius is a fixed sign. So fixed signs tend to be stubborn about everything, including their ideas, especially Aquarius, because Aquarians are connected to thoughts, communication. So being stubborn about your beliefs and your knowledge and maybe feeling like you know more than most can be present if there is some imbalance there most of the time. But another aspect of that that's really important is that when somebody is gifted intellectually, they very likely were advanced, growing up compared to their peers, and they were able to do their schoolwork faster, and while the other ones were still doing it, and they might have felt different than everybody else, and so that can naturally lead to feelings of superiority if the teacher is, oohing and eyeing over you, if you are in gifted classes, just all those kinds of things which honor that, because our society really does support people who are gifted. But if it's a public school, it's a one size fits all, so it can still make someone feel like they are not part of the group, and somehow that can end up being arrogance, maybe by being constantly praised or just as a defense mechanism of feeling different, feeling superior. So the thing about it is that, having said that, Aquarius is a sign that I associate with being spacey. Now, air signs we can say airheads. Marilyn Monroe was a Gemini, and she played a great ditzy person, but she was actually an intellectual. What was her name? Gracie Allen. Now that was way before my time, but she was the wife of George Burns. She played a ditzy broad, and she was an Aquarius, from what I understand. And I heard that you have to be very intelligent to play somebody who's dumb. So the reason there's that space equality is because Aquarius is always thinking about future inventions and concepts, plans. There's an ungrounded quality. Well, bring in the moon in Pisces and you've got yourself a doozy. So the person who is a sun in Aquarius may pride themselves as intelligent or an intellectual, but there may be something quirky going on there that makes them not appear that way to others. It could be if your Mercury is in Pisces, that you have a more an actual like irrational mind, more creative, less rational, and because there is so much intuitive stuff happening with your sun in Aquarius and your moon in Pisces, both of these placements can be very psychic. You just may not be grounded. And, Einstein was a Pisces sun, and he was not regarded as in one of the bright ones. I think he was not the in the they used to use the word slow, which is not politically correct anymore, but he was in the slow group when it came to math or something like that. And it's like unreal to imagine that in today's world, somebody like that is that much of a genius. But the thing is that genius cannot be measured. And so the person who's considered a crackpot, a space cadet, can be an absolutely brilliant person ahead of their time. That's Aquarius. So one of the things that you may have to do is make a concerted effort to ground yourself physically through different practices, but also emotionally. Having the moon in Pisces can make you very empathic, because Aquarius is intuitive, but it's not necessarily empathic, and it can be very much of the belief that we are all equal. I'm not saying that if it's not empathic, it means that the person doesn't care about other people, but not in that classic sense. Aquarians can be very aloof, and this combination can definitely blow hot and cold. And that's another thing to watch out for, because when you have a sun in air and the moon in water, you may struggle to understand your emotional self. And that can lead to doing things that are contradictory. And for an Aquarian, being a contrarian is, par for the course. But to other people, it can make you seem inscrutable. They don't know where you're coming from. And that can lead to frustration on the part of others trying to get through to you, figure out what your all about. So, you may be one of those people who forgets to eat, forgets to, puts on two different shoes. I don't know. Because your head can be in the clouds, or could actually be on Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius. And the moon in Pisces, as I've said many times, I think that people with a prominent Pisces may have suffered trauma, maybe severe trauma in some cases, and that part of Pisces that's about escapism can really be true in the moon position to protect the emotional nature. And this is not bad. This is something that is actually very good, because if it didn't exist, that person might be severely damaged. What it allows, like if something happens traumatic to you as a child, what happens is that it's like putting yourself in a protective bubble in this alternative reality, this fantasy life, and it allows you to retain your innocence. If a person doesn't retain their innocence, a lot of times they become very bitter. And this can keep your heart open even if you have suffered greatly from others, as an innocent child. So the problem becomes when the individual grows up as an adult and has more responsibilities in life, and wants to meet their life partner, maybe wants to have children, and then all of a sudden those emotions that are in a bubble, that bubble eventually gets popped, because you can't live there forever. And the demands of adulthood don't allow for complete oblivion. It's easier for a child to be protected from the ugly truths that might be around than it is for adults, because they have to navigate through that world, and they're expected to take it. They're expected to deal with it. What may happen is that you don't understand why you're as sensitive as you are, and you choose to double down on the Aquarian side to you. That would be a mistake, although I do think that having the sun in Aquarius can be a saving grace if your moon is in Pisces and if you have suffered in the past, because it does give you that detachment. But it can make it very hard for you to trust, to get close to others, and to even want to, because you may have 1,000 reasons why you would much rather, busy yourself with intellectual pursuits, socialize, where you can, touch base with different people, but you never have to get very, very close to one person. And even when you do get close to one person, you may still use socializing as a way to keep from, an excuse to keep from having to deal with your significant other in a one-on-one way. So the Aquarian who belongs to 10 different groups, they might be nice groups, they might be humanitarian groups, but they are also excuses to leave the home, probably every night, and avoid that deep connection one-on-one. So look at that and see if there is some truth to that. You may have a kind of a defense mechanism where when things get too emotionally intense, you go into that head space. And you are amazingly perceptive. So be careful, because this can be a way of intellectual bypassing, which is the opposite of spiritual bypassing. Spiritual bypassing being, anytime something comes up that is negative, kind of just saying, love and light and all that. Well, this can be trying to make sense of everything through the intellect, even when you have very strong emotions, picking up on the sorrow of humanity, which is probably a big trait of the moon in Pisces, picking up on that universal sob and being overwhelmed by that and trying to turn it into something intellectual, trying to intellectualize it, being overly intellectual and not in the heart chakra enough. Truly in the heart chakra, not in the heart chakra actually, I think the Piscean overly emotional imbalance that I'm thinking of is more second chakra. But anyway, the heart chakra is a bridge between the lower and the upper chakras. And so it is that in-between state. And another thing is never use your highly perceptive skills against others as a weapon, because a lower vibrational Aquarian with the moon in Pisces could be a master manipulator for sure, a master gaslighter, because they would have the tools to be able to get inside somebody's head. It's like the King of Swords in reverse, or the King of Cups in reverse. The idea of the person who feels powerless, so they seek to get inside people's heads and plant ideas, twisting things to make another person think a certain way on a particular topic, to be able to manipulate it in their favor. And that is, to me, that's almost like black magic in a sense, because there is that intuitive aspect to it. Let me see, anything else I wanted to say. Okay, this is one that I think really bears talking about, because I have seen this with Pisces itself, maybe even Sun in Pisces too, Venus in Pisces, where a person, and obviously I'm talking about Moon in Pisces, where sympathy is given to people who are perpetrators. I don't know, let me think if I can give an example. Well, and I have, and believe me, I do have, even a lot of times I will see that people think if somebody does something bad that, oh, that person's evil, oh, they should be tortured and blah, blah, blah. And, that kind of thing is not helpful. And to me, it's a lower vibration. That's how I look at it. When people are vengeful towards people who have done heinous things, I just think that that's not a higher attitude. But the person with the moon in Pisces, a lot of times they will it's almost like, I was going to say the word bonding with a person who is problematic, is abusive. And this is one of the reasons why the moon in Pisces person may lack discernment in picking a partner, because what's going on is that they see the vulnerability, or they feel that lack of love that person has, and it stirs their sympathies. And it's very dangerous to have your sympathies stirred when you have the moon in Pisces, because it can cause you to do foolish things. And then add to the mix a sun in Aquarius, which is very tolerant of all kinds of craziness. And you have the perfect recipe for disaster in relationships. And it doesn't even have to be just romantic. It can be, any type of relationship. All you need to do is have your sympathies stirred, and you're there. The irony is that these same people will often turn on those who are truly trying to help them, thinking that they're the bad guys. And their sympathies are aligned sometimes. And I'm saying I should be saying your sympathies might be aligned to bad actors for whatever reason. Well, I know why. I just said why. But that can cause you to actually reject people who have your best interests at heart. And with the sun in Aquarius, there is that pig-headedness that is also kicking in, where you refuse to budge. You refuse to acknowledge that you made a mistake. And is it the ego? Well, the sun is egoic. So yeah, it's going to be the ego. Actually, this is true for all fixed sun signs. I remember, I always think of Whitney Houston, who had her son in Leo, and her partner, I don't think they were married, were they? Bobby Brown has, I'm sure he's still with us, his son in Aquarius. So they were two fixed sign people, and everybody else was saying, you guys are bad for each other. You're pulling each other down. And they refused to leave each other, probably because other people wanted them to split. They were being, very stubborn about it. So watch out for that tendency, because you might think you're being so smart, and then somewhere down the line, you realize what a foolish mistake you made, trusting a certain person. Like I said, this can be a very intuitive combination. It's great for an astrologer. It's great for a straight up psychic, a prophet, a healer. Actually, with a healer, it can, having that sun in Aquarius can be good for avoiding burnout and that sort of thing, because you're not totally taking everything to heart. But you do have to watch out when you have the moon in Aquarius, whether you're, whatever type of work, if you're doing anything that involves other people and maybe, emotional stuff like being a counselor or a nurse, that you are not picking up other people's emotional baggage, angst, and that it's impacting you adversely because you're just such an empath. So anyway, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.